So if a person is trying to correct some type of symptom or health issue naturally, the reality is that just about any symptom or health problem out there can have 3, 4, or even 5 different possible underlying causes creating the problems. So one person can use a remedy that helps them feel better, and another person with the same symptom could use that same remedy and feel a whole lot worse. It's really about looking at the person and not just the symptom. So in all of our books and courses, we teach people how to run simple self-tests that they can do at home using tools that they can pick up at a pharmacy or a health food store to get an idea of how their body is operating and what may be going the wrong way, what imbalances may be going on that are creating the trouble that they're experiencing. If you have an idea of the most likely cause creating the problem for you, then you know the steps to take to try to correct that issue. So I want to share how we use our imbalance guide to allow a person just to get a picture of what may be going on. Now, none of this is diagnostic. You're not going to find like clinical trials of someone using this imbalance guide. Who would pay for that? I'm not going to pay $20 million for a clinical trial. I just bought new socks. But if you use this and it's really simple to use, you can get a picture of what may be going wrong. And if you can put some attention towards that imbalance or malfunction and create improvement there, does your symptom improve? That's what we like to help people do. Now, if you haven't read any of my books or taken any of our courses, I'm going to put a link in the description below so you can get my book, Kick Your Fat in the Nuts, totally for free. And that'll kind of walk you through how to run these tests and how to look at these results. And we also have a totally free digestion course if you prefer to watch videos instead of reading a book. And I'll put the link in that description below as well. And just looking at this can be a little bit intimidating, but I want to show you how easy it is to fill it out and get a picture of how your body might be operating. Let's jump in.
TC Hale is not a doctor and does not claim to be a doctor or licensed in any type of medical field. Don't be an idiot and use anything heard on the show as medical advice. This information should be used for educational purposes only, and you should contact your doctor for any medical advice. Now get off me.
And here you'll just see an image of what we call a data tracking sheet, and that's just one box from this page that just allows people to input their self-test numbers so that they can keep track of what their progress is doing. And the tests that we have people run are very simple. We look at things like blood pressure. A person just has a blood pressure cuff that they picked up at a pharmacy for $40. We look at urine, saliva, and pH that they use with test strips you can get for $15, $20 at a health food store. And we have them test their breath rate and the time that they can hold their breath comfortably. And then we also have people look at their fasting glucose from time to time to see how that is. And we leave a space here if someone wants to put a fasting glucose number in there. So these are all very simple tests that they can just run at home. And then we take this information, and I'm going to show you how we fill out this data sheet to get an idea of what imbalances or malfunctions could be creating trouble. So a big priority in the body is this electrolyte status. So let's just make up a person and we're going to do this test for Susie. Okay, so these are just made up numbers for Susie, and we're going to look at her electrolyte status too, because that's a very important status in the body and can dictate how a lot of other things will operate. So we want to look at her blood pressure, and we see that her systolic number, which is that top number on the blood pressure cuff, was 95. So I'm just going to come over here to this electrolyte status chart, and I'm going to put an X right about where 95 would go, in between 92 and 97. And then I look at her diastolic, which is 58, and I'm going to put an X right there to get an idea of where her diastolic number is. So we're just looking at the top and the bottom numbers of the blood pressure, and now that part is completely done. That was really simple. Now we're going to go down here and look at what her breath rate was. How many times does she inhale in a minute? And that number was 11. So I'm just going to come down here and circle this 11. And then the breath hold time, I can see that she held her breath comfortably for 55 seconds. So I'll put this in this box here. Next up, we're going to look at some pHs. And we see that her urine pH is 6.6. So I'm just going to put an X right around where that 6.6 would be. Her saliva pH was 6.8. So I'm going to put that over here around where 6.8 would be. And I don't need to put this water intake in over here. I just like to keep an eye on that to see if that's going to affect any of these other numbers. But I've already filled in all the information that I'm going to fill in. My arm didn't even break. It was very simple for me to do. This standing blood pressure test is a test we have people do sometimes to get some indications of how are the adrenals doing, are electrolyte problems more severe, looking at this jump from the pulse. So this gives more information, but we don't have people run this standing blood pressure test every single day, and we don't need to put this in this basic imbalance guide. We have more advanced imbalance guides that we use for the health professionals that we train, but this is just a simple one that allows a consumer to read a book and do something simple to get an idea of what's going on in their body. So now what we want to do is we want to look at some of these validators to get an idea of imbalances that may be creating trouble. So we look at this information, and this catabolic anabolic validator is just an indication of how the body's doing at the cellular level with its circadian rhythm. Is it able to move into the catabolic state during the day and run all the operations that the body needs to run in that catabolic state? And can it move into the anabolic state at night and do all the operations that the body needs to do while we're sleeping in that anabolic rebuild and repair state? So if someone's really stuck in one of these states, it can create a wide variety of health issues and symptoms. So it's nice to have an idea if a person's leaning in one direction or the other. So I'm going to look at these validators, and I'm just going to make marks on any of them that show up on either the catabolic side or the anabolic side. So when we look at this urine pH greater than 6.3, well, hers was greater than 6.3. It was 6.6, so I'm going to put a check mark over here. And when we look at these pH dots of under each, the catabolic and the anabolic, for the catabolic, we're generally going to see these pHs far apart. So these dots are far apart, and in an anabolic state, it's very common to see them close together. So since hers were close together, here's the saliva and here's her urine, those are pretty close together. They're not far apart and separated like this. So I'm going to circle this so that I know that that's happening when I'm looking at these validators. Now I'm going to go to saliva pH, and a saliva pH less than 6.6 is also an anabolic marker, and a saliva pH greater than 6.9 can be a catabolic marker. So her saliva pH is not in either of those categories. It's more of a balanced pH, and you can see that it's in this optimal zone here. We'll talk about that in a second, but I'm not going to mark that on either one. This polyuria is a situation where maybe people are urinating a lot because this imbalance has the ability to send more water to the kidneys and less to the bowels. And we know that Susie's getting up 2 or 3 times a night to pee, so we're going to check off this polyuria here. And we also know that Susie is dealing with some chronic constipation issues, so we're going to check that off. And she didn't have any of these markers of the other ones show up when we're looking at what she's dealing with. These might list some symptoms along with some markers from tests that we've run. Now, if a person had maybe 2 or 3 markers on this side and maybe 2 or 3 markers on this side, they're like, well, I don't know, am I catabolic or anabolic? Well, if someone's kind of balanced like that, then they may just be balanced in that area. That's the goal. You really want to be balanced in each area. So a person doesn't have to have an imbalance in every area that we look at. We just want to see, are things weighted in one way or another? And here with Susie, she has like 4 markers over on this side, and she doesn't have any on this side. So we might consider that her anabolic imbalance could be an issue, and it could be more of a significant issue. So I'm going to go down here under this needs improvement area, and I'm going to circle this anabolic imbalance because that appears to be an issue that might be a significant problem for her. And that makes sense. We're seeing some numbers that are outside of these good zones. In the saliva, she does have that in a good zone, but the urine pH, we see 2 different optimal zones here, 2 different green boxes. And that's because in this light green box, that would be an optimal pH if someone's breath rate was between 16 and 20. And there's a different optimal zone for urine pH if someone's breath rate is between 10 and 15. So we know Susie's breath rate was 11, so we look down here and say, okay, between 10 and 15 is where she is, so this would be her optimal pH zone, this dark green one, between 5.5 and 6. So we see she's quite a bit above that. She's quite a bit out of her optimal zone. So it makes sense that an imbalance would show up and maybe creating some trouble. So next we want to go down to these energy validators and get an idea, is she leaning more towards a fat burner or a carb burner? We really want the body to be able to process both types of fuel so that when we're out of one type, it can go and burn another type of fuel. We don't want to be stuck just burning one type of fuel because that can create a lot of trouble. So when we look at these validators here, this breath rate greater than 16 is on the carb burner side, and a breath rate lower than 15 is on this fat burner side. So her breath rate was 11, so we're going to put that mark there. And then a breath hold time greater than 50 seconds is also on this fat burner side. We see that she had 55 seconds. So we're going to check off that box there. And then here, a systolic blood pressure lower than 112 is over on this carb burner side. So her blood pressure was 95. It was a lot lower than 112. And then here we see urine pH greater than 6.3. She was up here in this 6.6 area, so we're going to check that one off. Her saliva pH was not below 6.6 and it was not above 6.9, so it was just in a good range. So we're not going to check off either of those issues. So you can see she kind of has 2 over here and 2 over here. So we probably wouldn't jump to a big conclusion that she was really imbalanced there. She might be a little bit more balanced in that area, so I don't need to circle anything. If something might look like it, maybe she's got 3 over here and just 1 or 2, so maybe that's something I want to keep an eye on, then I would just underline that carb burner thing so I know to keep an eye on that. Now when we look at these digestive issues validators, we see that systolic blood pressure under 112 is under these digestive issue validators, and hers blood pressure was way under 112. So I'm going to check that off, and the reason that's a validator there because a low blood pressure is an indication that they're not bringing in enough minerals or nutrients from the food that they're eating. And that's usually because they can't break it down properly. So we view that as a validator that digestive issues are likely needing to be improved. Also, the diastolic blood pressure under 74, well, she was 58, so she's way under that. We also know that Susie was doing some bloating, so under burping or bloating, we're going to check a box there. And we also know that she was dealing with some constipation like we talked about. So I'm going to check that box off there. So when you're looking at 4 problems under those digestive validators, that's a pretty strong indication that the digestive issues need to be improved for the body to run optimally. So under here, I'm going to circle this issue for digestive issues so we know that we need a lot of attention there. And when we're looking at the electrolyte status up here, we see that both of her numbers were in this red electrolyte deficiency imbalance area. This is the area where those electrolytes will be balanced, and this is where the body seems to be dealing with too many electrolytes, and it can't really get rid of stuff the way that it's supposed to. So since she's down here in this electrolyte deficient area, then we're going to circle this electrolyte deficiency so we know that that's a problem. So when we're looking at Susie and we're just trying to get a picture, well, some things really jump out. For some people it won't jump out. Some people they'll look pretty balanced and things are going pretty well. But for Susie we see that there's a significant electrolyte deficiency imbalance. We see that there's likely an anabolic imbalance, and we see that digestion really needs some help. So you can see that was really easy. That just took us a few minutes to fill that out, and most of that time was just because I was blabbing so much. The kid really cannot shut up. But that can be filled out very quickly, and then a person, if they take steps that we teach how to take to improve a lot of these imbalances, then they can fill out another one and see, am I creating results? Am I moving in the right direction? If I'm moving in the right direction, I'll keep putting in this effort because at least I'm getting some results here. Now, it can take some effort to learn about these imbalances, learn how to run these tests, but it's a lot better than just throwing darts at the remedy dartboard trying to figure out why you can't improve the symptom that you're dealing with. If you can understand the most likely underlying cause that's creating it, then you have a place to start, and you don't have to waste so much time going from remedy to remedy and, oh man, this one made me feel worse. It takes a lot of time to do that as well. So if you're willing to do the effort to figure these things out, it can make creating a solution a whole lot easier. Now, we'll put some links to some videos explaining some of these imbalances in the description below this video, as long as those links where you can get the book for free or that online course for free to really understand how to run these tests and interpret this stuff. So if you've already read one of my books or something, we'll put the link where you can download this imbalance guide on our Kick It Naturally website in the description below this video, along with the links to that free book or the free course so that you can learn how to run these tests and understand these different imbalances. But right now, if you want to understand that anabolic imbalance that seems to be creating some trouble for Susie, you can jump over and check out our video on understanding an anabolic imbalance. I can't wait to hear about your results.